some more.
Yo, what's good, people? Izzy Max here, back again for a quick week 5. I'm here with the guys. What's up, y'all?
Nothing too much. Doing good.
What's going on, guys?
So this week, this is another week of buys, so we're technically supposed to have 4 games, but getting it out of the way early. Matt and Nin's game ended up in a forfeit win for Matt, and that's all I'm going to say. So here we go. The first game I will cover, and this is going to be Tay versus Dark. You do see here that it is a 0+2 win for Dark. This was an interesting game with a lot of new things for Tay. I do know that he's not that knowledgeable with how Prankster and on top of that Quash works with the Sableye. So I will give him props for how he used it. Going forward, I do expect him to use it a little more optimally, knowing how it kind of works. And then on Dark side, the use of Umbreon was just very, very good. Those are kind of the two difference makers in this game. We do see that in game 1, if you watch the match, he maxed the Mr. Rhyme at like 4 HP, and then it continued to sweep through Dark's team.
So cool.
It was so good. It was such a good play, and it kind of set the tempo moving forward. And then just the lack of knowledge for Sableye, which I get it. If you don't play a lot of Sableye, especially with Quash, you're not going to really know how it works, which is totally understandable. And then other than that, Dark King finally brings his new Mons, no Gigas, no Wheezing, and he actually brings them both in the Mudsdale and the Darmanitan, which they both really didn't do anything, and that's kudos to Tay for recognizing that those two were actually threats and dealing with them very early. Tay did call out the weakness policy as soon as he seen the Inteleon next to the Mudsdale, and then he also called the Choice Scarf on the Darm, which is just the standard set, but he did call it out properly and was able to get those two Mons under control. Nextly, the use of the Conkeldurr was really, really good. One thing we brought up before we started recording is on Tay's side, just make sure you check the moves for power, because when we were watching the video, you were clicking max Mach Punch instead of max Close Combat or Drain Punch. I don't remember what you had. But that little bit of power can make a difference. Really, this game was really, really good, and I think it kind of came down to their newer items. You do see that both of them brought both of their new Mons. The Mudsdale, the Darmanitan, and Tay did bring the Berserker, which didn't hit the field. It shouldn't have, like, looking at what he brought. And the Sableye. The only thing that is weird when you see this 0+2 is Marowak never actually got killed. It always killed itself.
Recoil.
Yeah, recoil. Maybe bring Rockhead. I get it. It is probably going to be one of your max options, so Cursed Body does make some sense. But all 3 abilities are very relevant, so not going to dock you on that. This was a very well-played game. The one thing that probably killed Tay the most was not targeting the Umbreon, which is a complete oversight. Like, if you're not thinking Umbreon is a threat, you're probably not going to target it, because what you have on the field doesn't care about Umbreon. But you just took enough chip damage where Umbreon was able to clean up both games. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Good set for both guys. They didn't play bad. I can see both of these guys doing a lot better once they figure out what to do with their new pieces.
Yeah, I have a couple comments on this game. Nothing too big. First off, I was absolutely thrilled to see Conkeldurr show up this match. I recall I was in a call with, I think it was you. We were talking about this matchup, and I was like, if Tay doesn't bring Conkeldurr, he's throwing, and he brought Conkeldurr. I actually think in a lot of ways, Tay's prep was actually a little better than Dark's. I think that Tay brought really good counters to everything that Dark had, and I was even DMing Dark a little bit, and he even admitted, he was like, Tay actually really tools to handle my team, even with all these new things on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that said, I actually really got to compliment Dark for adapting.
Yes.
Dark has had some trouble with adapting this season, and it was actually one of his big strengths last season, I'd argue. And after you encounter a weakness policy Mr. Rhyme next to a Sableye, which I thought was brilliant, by the way, because, like, to me, a Sableye Mr. Rhyme is a very passive lead. and then you find out that it's weakness policy and it's going to kill the whole team. Like, that was really cool. I thought that was really neat.
And ice body, so he was regaining some health, which is brilliant.
I really, really liked that a lot. But even after seeing that, Dark was able to get the win back off kind of knowing his win cons, and he actually, I think, played around the Quash pretty well, by and large. Quash can be kind of hard to deal with, but if you realize that you can kind of funnel all your offense onto the Mon that isn't Sableye, and if you can avoid getting KO'd by the Quash, whatever is helping the Quashmon, you can kind of funnel that, and we saw that best utilized in like game 3.
Yes.
So that's kind of just my thoughts on it. I thought it was a really good set overall, and this was a pretty big game for both of them. Not gonna lie, I was slightly rooting for Tay in this one, and I do think that there are definitely situations in which he wins this one. I also was rooting for Dark to really start getting momentum back, get some wins, and I do think he came into this with a really nice game plan, and I really like seeing Celesteela. So.
Yeah, Celesteela was huge. Looking at it, it doesn't look like it did much, but it soaked up a lot of hits. Definitely threw that Quash as well.
It's a big boy.
Yeah. Anything for you, Matt, before we move on?
Yeah, I was. I mean, regarding Dark King's ability to adapt, I think he just because he got rid of the Giga Squeezing, he just has more flexibility and more
sure.
ability to adapt, and I think we definitely saw that the switch to the Dynamax Celesteela in game 2 and 3 was really huge. Celesteela played a huge part, like you said, even though it on paper here it only got 2 kills. It did a huge amount of work. It was the number one thing doing damage to that Max Conkeldurr, even if the Umbreon was what finished it off with those little bits of foul play. But yeah, I guess I guess it's since Ryan was rooting for Tay a little bit, I guess I was probably rooting for Dark King a little bit. It's been a little bit disappointing to see that his team comp dragged him down these past few weeks, and now that he has something better, it's good to see him getting a win and rising back up a little bit, because he's a better player than 0-4 in your first 4 weeks.
That's absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, and this loss isn't as big for Tay as this win is big for Dark, because if Dark lost this, there was a very slim chance that he actually makes playoffs. But now he's back in the run. Yeah, now that he won this, the red division is still wide open, probably other than the top 2 slots. Which, spoiler warning, are me and Ryan. The bottom 4 slots, 3 of those 4 teams are making it. At least to the wild card, and it's still wide open. So I'm excited to see where both of these guys go. Next up, Ryan, go ahead and talk about me and Toxic's match.
Yeah, this was a cool set. This was my probably my favorite game. So a couple things I really liked. I got to give Toxic props for Assault Vest Stack Attacka. What a crazy play, and I really liked it, and the fact that he was able to catch you so off guard with it in game 1 and really get a nice momentum win off that, I actually thought was really cool. It was really unique, it was interesting, and you look at your team, Maxwell, and you're not thinking, oh yeah, Stack Attacka really works here, but you didn't really have the tools to deal with AV Stack Attacka, because who does that?
Not so late game AV, no.
I thought that was really neat. I like the mons he brought a lot, actually. I liked the Urshifu, Jolteon. I would have brought pretty much the same comp of mons. On your end, though, I gotta give you some huge props on Safety Goggles Blastoise. That did come up. Setup sweepers with Safety Goggles is something that more experienced draft players sometimes are on the lookout for. But it's kind of something we haven't seen in a while. We saw it last season, actually, a couple times. Brock used it on a few occasions, but we haven't really seen it this season.
Well, with Shell Smash, it's a little bit different, because you are dropping those defenses, and I made sure to calc it to where I would live a hit from Fiery Wrath. Yep. Yeah.
I do like Moltres as an offensive threat here pretty well. I really like the use of Frostmoth on your end. Indeedee was huge. Indeedee just ate hits for days. And I like the continued use of Hippowdon on your team. I think that's really starting to work out for you. And it's a good bring against Toxic's team, I think, because he doesn't love ground types in general. And it's kind of a bulky boy, so it can kind of deal with some of those threats. But I really like this set a lot. I thought it was really nice. It had this game, to me, though, does emphasize something that I think last game we talked about adaptability, and I was complimenting Dark King on how he adapted in that set, because I actually really think without those adaptations, he had really no shot. Toxic, in this case, had a really interesting case where he really won game one off of a lot of surprise factor.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately for him, you adapted well enough that surprise factor did not work out.
No.
And that's kind of the thing when you go for something like an Assault Vest Stakataka, is that it's really cool and your opponent's not going to prep for it. So you can like win a game off that or win a set off that. You can win your first game off of that. But the problem is that on the pivot back, your opponent, if it's something like that, it's like, well, Stakataka can't protect itself. I know that now, and I can bring the tools to bring with a Stakataka. I mean, I didn't prep for it, but I have plenty of stuff that hits it super effectively. And that's actually something I've seen a little bit throughout the league, where sometimes it's a game one win for someone, and then games 2 and 3, because that surprise factor has worn off, the other person has the necessary tools to kind of adapt better, in a sense. And I actually think that's kind of where Toxic fell here, is that outside of that Stakataka, he actually really didn't bring the necessary tools to handle the rest of the team as well as it kind of needed to be. Good prep on his part, though. I really applaud the creativity, and I will not deny that game one, you got kind of whooped a little.
Oh, yeah.
But your games 2 and 3 were pretty commanding, because I think that he didn't have anything outside of that tool that could really surprise you anymore.
I mean, if you look, his main offensive mon, the Moltres, had 0 kills.
Yeah, and that is just sort of how it is sometimes, frankly. I have won and lost games off surprise factor. It's just an interesting pattern we're noticing this season. I think that as players get better, adaptation becomes much more important in best of 3 sets. But I also think that the use of more creative sets like that can really cause big upset wins. Like if Toxic won that game 1, and then game 2 he came up with some strategy that was able to keep you off balance long enough to get a second win, he would have won that set, and it would have been a little bit of an upset.
Yeah, for sure.
And that kind of thing is really what a lot of competitive Pokemon boils down to, I think, especially in draft.
Yeah, and the difference between his creativity in this match and mine is my creativity was sitting on the bench. The Colossal was not ever coming to this match. It was just there to bait him to where not thinking my Blastoise was actually a setup sweeper.
Right.
Matt, before I get talking about my own match, anything you got to say?
Yeah, I'd like to second Ryan's praise of the stack usage here. Especially once Toxic sees that you don't have Urshifu in Team Preview, it becomes a really, really great option. It worked pretty well for him. I would have liked to see that thing in Trick Room, whether it was setting it for itself and it was Assault Vest, but I think it would have.
Trick Room.
Right, that too.
Yeah.
I don't remember if he has another Trick Room set on his draft, but Comfey is good enough.
He does actually. I'd have to look though.
In any case, excellent stack usage, and I also this is just something I'm thinking about off the top of my head here, but this match from you, Maxwell, reminds me of your performance last week against Hunter as well, where you kind of you had that Dynamax Colossal in the first game that didn't really pan out, and then you switched to the Max Bulu. You made that adjustment, and it worked out for game 2 and 3. The same kind of thing happened here. The Frostmoth didn't work out very well, but when you adjusted to the Blastoise, you had obviously a much better game 2 and 3. So if maybe that pattern means something, I don't know, but there's at least a brief pattern of good adjustments on your part against against opponents when something in game one doesn't exactly work out. So
yeah,
props
well,
to you.
thank you. The one thing I will disagree with you, Frostmoth did a lot of work. The only reason I went away from it was because it was AV stack instead of just like a setup trick room
Standard.
stack. Yeah. Because if it wasn't AV stack, Frostmoth has really good potential to one shot it. But it was AV, so I couldn't. Other than that, Blastoise was definitely my backup plan going through the entire match. I knew that Frostmoth actually wasn't my first option, but seeing what he brought, I thought, okay, well, this is definitely AV stack. If it wasn't setting it up itself, the Comfey was going to set it up. So AV was not even on my mind, especially since I do have the Urshifu. I was half tempted not to even think that Stack Attacker was coming because of the Urshifu. But yeah, the Indeedee, this is the first time I brought screens Indeedee. I didn't really get to set one up that actually mattered, but it was a really cool set, and it was very, very bulky for what he had to bring. The defense boosts on the stack actually allowed the Hippowdon to not be able to kill it. It was still doing a whole lot of damage with the high horsepower. And props to the Hippo for actually living a Surging Strikes both times on 14. Lived on 14% both times it got hit with it, which is just huge. I wasn't actually expecting it to live, but yeah, it was a good game overall. I just feel like I adapted correctly, and he really didn't have anything for that adaptation.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I still think, though, this continues the trend, even though he lost. This does continue the trend of what I'm seeing from Toxic a lot this season, which is really good prep and really good play.
Yeah, for sure. And
he's really keeping that trend going.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you out, Ryan. I actually called a protect, and it ended up winning me not so much winning me the game, but letting me really win the game on game 3. After you saying I don't call protects, well, I got one on you, sir.
You got one.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'll give you one.
And then Matt, you can have the last one here. Burst and Hub.
All right, so there's not too much to say about this one. It's this really just seemed to be a case of Dragonite and Togetic being able to kind of do whatever it wanted against what Burst brought. Based on which is pretty obvious when you see where the kills are coming from on Hub's side. The Dragonite maxed both games 1 and 2 and just kind of destroyed everything. Really good coverage with the Fire Punch, and the Thunder Punch was able to take out the Kartana and Gyarados very easily. Did a lot of damage to basically everything that Burst had on his side. So based on the way that the game played out and what Burst was saying in chat afterward, it seemed like, and I suppose I could be a little bit off on this, but it seemed to me like there was just too much prep for one thing and not for another. It seemed like he was prepping pretty hard for the Venusaur and maybe neglected the Dragonite a little bit too much. It's hard to say exactly how much the Dragonite was on his mind during prep. I mean, he did have like Ice Fang on Aerodactyl, for example, so I'm sure there was some attention paid to it, but I think this is an example of why you really need to prep for everything instead of prepping for some things harder than others. Because if the thing that you don't have as much prep for comes out, which in this case it did, it's just going to roll over you, which again it did. So
for sure.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the strengths for Hub, actually, since she does have so many threats sitting right beside that Togetic. You got the Lycanroc, the Dragonite, the Cinderace, the Venusaur. It can be hard, and you can run into some 4-move slot syndrome, and you kind of sometimes have to tunnel. And I think, I agree. Yeah. He kind of tunneled the wrong way.
Right. That said, though, I actually do like the Mons Burst brought a lot. This is some of the most Mon diversity we've seen from Burst. I especially really like the Aerodactyl bring here. I like Klefki as well with the Gyarados, Incineroar with the double Intimidate. I think that's all really, really, really good stuff. I also actually really like Latios here. It ended up not doing a whole lot, but if that Dragonite comes out and you can actually get rid of Togetic and it can't follow me, then Latios can just easily wipe out a Dragonite. So I actually really like the Mon brings here. I just think that like you guys were saying, I think some of the move slots and some of the sets should have been a little altered to kind of handle some of those threats better. But it's really hard with Hub's team. Prepping for Hub can be really difficult. One of the things with some of the stronger teams is that it's really hard to prep for everything someone has. And it takes a lot of time and energy to kind of come up with something that works. And honestly, and I don't mean this in a negative way, if your team doesn't have the tools to deal with everything, then you might end up getting a little stuck, you know?
Yeah. Matt, question for you since you were in that conversation with Burst. Why Iron Ball instead of Lagging Tail?
Oh, right. I did ask him that. I don't actually remember off the top of my head what he said. I think he said something about still wanting the priority from Prankster, which you
would still get, yeah.
Right, I think it's important to clarify. You still get the +1 priority. Lagging Tail or Full Incense, they do the same thing. They just make you move last in your priority bracket.
Right. So you could get faked out.
Right. Well, I mean, you could get faked out without it anyway. Prankster's
right, because Prankster is only +1.
Right. So, yeah, you'll just move slower than all of the other +1 moves, like, Sucker Punch or Shadow Sneak or something like that. Yeah, generally that's going to be the better item. I think Trick Iron Ball is really you're really only going to want that if you need to ground something unexpectedly, something that would be weak to a ground attack. Otherwise, I don't really see anything on here. It seemed to be just more for speed control. But if that's the case, then yeah, the Lagging Tail or Full Incense is the way to go there.
Okay, so that was probably just a miss, just an oversight, not really.
Honestly, not a huge deal.
So.
Though.
No,
I didn't even. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know all that. I just. I would have probably tossed on Lagging Tail, but if I randomly tossed an Iron Ball on, I wouldn't really blink twice at myself.
Yeah,
I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
One funny thing with that trick or switcheroo, whichever one, I don't remember. It tricked and got a life orb from the Dragonite, therefore being able to kill on switch in AV Pangoro with a dazzling gleam, and I just thought that was hilarious because AV Pangoro was calced to live it every single time, but not with a life orb.
Not with a life orb, baby.
No, and that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff.
That's all we have this week.
Yeah, transactions are not done.
No, transactions are in the middle of happening now.
We'll probably cover them next week.
Yeah,
if
we'll throw them on there. Yeah. So anything from you guys? Oh, no, we won't cover them next week because next week is Power Rankings, our final Power Ranking for the season. Moving into the cross division plays.
Yeah, and that Power Ranking will be. We haven't really discussed it in a whole lot of depth, but I was pretty sure we were going to do divisional Power Rankings with specific points towards playoffs.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be a little more fleshed out than week 3 was, mostly because we have more information. It will be divisional based, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be the first Power Ranking where we actually break down into divisions, and with the shortened season, we only have 3 weeks left. So,
Yep.
Anything else from you guys?
Yep, that'll be all. I'm excited for next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.